This week, the U.S. Supreme Court gave President Trump another win, allowing him to proceed with his effort to regulate and restrict mail-in voting. But he's now facing a new challenge. Attorneys general from dozens of states run by Democrats have filed a new lawsuit, along with some voting rights groups. They want to block the U.S. Postal Service from creating lists of who is eligible to vote and prevent the agency from withholding ballots from voters the Trump administration deems ineligible. A federal judge has scheduled a hearing for next week. This legal wrangling is adding confusion to the whole voting system with the midterm elections barely 2 months away. Also keep in mind that President Trump calls mail-in voting fraudulent and corrupt, even though he has repeatedly done it himself, including this year. Let's put this to our panel. Fabian Nunez is the founder and managing partner of Actum, a global consulting firm. And Jennifer Horn is the host of The Morning Answer on 870 AM here in Los Angeles. Jennifer, let's start with you. President Trump, mail-in votes. Why shouldn't everybody else?
Well, I think everybody can if they actually request the ballot. I don't think people have trouble necessarily with the idea of voting by mail as long as there is actually someone who has requested that ballot. You'll remember in California, you could vote by mail as long as you requested an absentee ballot. Right now, universal mail-in ballots are all over the place because the voter rolls are so bloated. Here in California, you know, Alex, we do not clean up our voter rolls. They want to continually add people back, even when lawsuits have them removed in LA County. They put 1 million names back on the voter rolls. And this causes a lot of people, not just conservatives, to go, well, maybe I shouldn't be getting 18 ballots sent to my home. There's a question
here. Has anybody gotten 18 ballots sent to
believe me,
their
some
home?
of the horror stories that I've heard on my radio show in Los Angeles say just that. I mean, I've seen pictures of this. So look, I think we need to clean up the voter rolls. I think President Trump is asking for states to cooperate. And if they don't, he's saying that the Postal Service can't deliver those ballots. And he is in charge of the Postal Service. The executive branch is in charge of the Postal Service. He has the rights to do this. And the state can figure out how to run the election without it if they choose to continue this process.
I mean, there are a lot of ballots that are sent to people that didn't want them or didn't ask for them or have moved or all the rest of it in this sort of system. That is part of what happens here, right?
Well, I think if you put it in context, I mean, it's something like 30% of voters around the country vote by mail. And if you think about, you know, who has the right to run elections, by an act of Congress, the states actually are the ones who are authorized to do that. The president can't just unilaterally change that. It has to be an act of Congress. So if it goes back to Congress, and some of these ballot points, I think, you know, could be raised and should be raised. But the fact of the matter is the system itself works when over 1.3% of those ballots, you know, there's something wrong. Somebody is not the right correct signature or whatever, and they get thrown out. And so if we're solving towards a larger problem where we want to instill some sense of confidence in our voting system, then I think in the future we should start thinking about what can we do to improve upon it. But I'll tell you, the fundamental problem on the Democratic side is that, you know, women didn't have a right to vote to the 16th Amendment in the 1920s.
19th Amendment.
The 19th Amendment, sorry, in 1920. I was thinking about blacks. It was in the late 1800s. Yeah. But really, there was a lot of voter repression throughout the history of this country. And it really wasn't until the Equal Rights Amendment when we saw voting rights, or the Voting Rights Amendment, we saw people's rights being protected, because there was all kinds of shenanigans going on in this country to repress the vote of women and people of color. And so there's a lot of distrust on both sides, but I do think people need to come together and figure out, how do we instill confidence in our voter system? That's why you see in the polling, even young people now saying, well, what's wrong with having an ID? Right? So now you have to take all these things into consideration, but cannot do this in the context of, you know, a couple of months before an election with someone whose really livelihood is at stake in these elections.
And interesting. So Caltech did a study looking at, does universal mail-in ballots actually increase voter participation? Something I've wondered, because that's the whole point of this, right? And let's put up the results of that study. We found a 3 to 4 percentage point increase in turnout due to the policy. The impact was larger for partisan voters compared to non-party affiliate voters, but among partisan voters, we found no evidence of Democrats getting an advantage, which has been a common narrative. So is it worth it if this is getting more people to vote, to increase turnout by making it easier, making it more convenient, to give people this choice, this option?
I'm going to surprise you. This is not about politics for me. This is about the security of our elections. And certainly whether it gives an advantage to Democrats or Republicans, that's not what we should be thinking about right now. We should be talking about securing our elections, and having a valid ID is supported by 70% of the country, maybe even more than that. They want to make sure that these ballots are safe and secure, and that one vote, one person. I don't think that suppresses the vote. I'm very confident that women and people of color can find an ID. I believe that when you have bloated voter rolls, and look, when the voter rolls are contained, and some states do a great job keeping their voter rolls maintained, when that happens, there's not a problem with mail-in ballots. But you have states like the one that we're in tonight, California, that doesn't do a great job maintaining the voter rolls, and that causes a problem. It shouldn't be about who wins or what party benefits from this. It should be about the safety and security of our elections.
Yeah, and then the question is, how do you balance either real fraud, the appearance of fraud, the long process to count the ballots, and the integrity of the election, getting more people to vote. And it's important to have a nuanced conversation about that, and not just the talking points where people are talking about it. Real quickly.
No, but I was just gonna say, you should have we should have an open conversation about having open elections that are consistent with the rules, but not politically motivated at the same time. Because I think sometimes what happens is when politicians get in the way of trying to steer the electorate in one way or another, and they come up with ideas on how to restrict voting, then obviously that quote that you had up on the screen there shows increased participation. That is not the objective of some of these efforts. The objective of some of these efforts is to actually suppress, do the opposite of that, to get people not to vote. And that's what we need to do, is figure out how to protect the integrity of our voting system and make sure that that right to vote, which is one of the most integral parts of an open democracy, of a real democracy, is your right to vote.
I wonder if the Secretary of State should be a nonpartisan appointed position.
Yes, please.
Not an elected position. I would Jennifer Horn and Fabio Nunez, thank you. You'll be back with us in our next hour. Look forward to that. We will be back with more here on the Korean Train, including a report on what's happening. Warning that this contains some distressing video. Many people caught off guard when a landslide unleashed a wall of water and mud that swept through towns along the border between China and Nepal. This devastation, which we see right here, has been captured in videos and satellite images across the region. Former CNN international correspondent Nina Udas joins us now from Kathmandu, Parliament, Nepal's House of Representatives. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm so sorry that your country is going through this. What are you seeing on the ground?
Thanks very much for having me. First, I'd like to express my heartfelt condolences to the victims and families of those who have been affected by this devastating flash flood. The government is very much on search and rescue mode at the moment. More than 2,000 personnel, security forces have been deployed. Relief trucks have been deployed, carrying tents, water, food, portable generators for the survivors who have managed to climb uphill. As you mentioned, so far about 162 to 65 bodies have been recovered downstream, and unfortunately that number is expected to rise. Now this is one of the deadliest disasters I would say that we've ever seen here. We're still trying to wrap our heads around just the magnitude of the devastation. On one day, it was about 600 hospitals in the area. Now almost all the major roads, all the bridges have been destroyed. So the search and rescue teams are having a difficult time, but more than that, we're really having a difficult time fully understanding the scope of the damage and the loss of life. What we do know is that entire small towns and hamlets have been decimated. Buildings have been, as you can see in the video, have been covered with mud sludges. Dozens of tourist buses carrying pilgrims really a lifeline in terms of trade for Nepal. It was the only operational border crossing with the customs office, and those dramatic CCTV images that we see is that of the customs office on the China side. As for per the Nepali Foreign Ministry, about 40 to 50,000 people are expected to have been impacted. But this is still early information, I would say, and it will take a few days to assess the full extent of the damage. And of course, all of this with the overarching fear that we are at risk of further flooding as well.
So, what is happening right now in terms of the rescue? Because it is so hard to get there. Is it only basically by helicopter, or what's the process ahead? And what is the greatest need and sort of the way that the rest of us from around the world that are watching this can potentially help right now?
All the Army helicopters have been deployed. They've also reached out to all the private helicopter companies as well. All of those have been deployed as well. Some of the access routes further up on the hills are accessible. So that's how they're taking. I was just speaking to the Brigadier General here, and he was telling me that they're accessing taking a lot of the relief supplies through that sort of through those upper smaller roads, but because those are much smaller roads, they can only take smaller trucks along those roads. So they're really having a difficult time. In terms of the need, I mean, this is, like I mentioned, this is a major border crossing for Nepal and China. So in some of the images, you see all of those cars and trucks and buses, not buses, but like SUVs being sort of swept away. And those were all sort of, they were coming across the border, electric cars and vehicles that were sort of coming across the border. This is also, Trishuli River is one of Nepal's major river corridors as well. So right now, the Ministry of Physical Infrastructure has estimated that there's losses of at least $1.2 billion, with about 45 kilometers of roads wiped out, dozens of very large bridges, as I mentioned earlier, 9 hydroelectric power stations impacted, houses, schools, hospitals, and of course, people's homes. And again, it's still very difficult to get a sense of the magnitude and just how many people have been impacted by this.
So Mina Uras, who has covered so many disasters for this network as a reporter, now responding to this disaster as a member of parliament in Nepal. Know that the whole world is praying for people, thinking about
Someone is smiling in the sun. Someone is holding a coffee, looking like life has begun. I sit beside my window, the day still half undone. I used to think I was behind compared to everyone, but I don't see the whole story. Only see the brightest days, bring those perfect moments and measure my forgot. 1 second, we all have room to take flowers, don't have to bloom too. Yeah, birds are beautiful in their own way.
CNN and Variety Red Carpet Live, TV's biggest night, streaming on CNN.
I didn't think I was at risk for shingles. I was 16 years old. I had a lot on my plate. I was chilling.
Flood swept through villages along the Nepal-China border. Hundreds of people are missing after a landslide triggered a torrent of water and mud. More than 300 foreign nationals are among those unaccounted for, including at least 47 Americans. At least 165 people have been killed. The death toll is expected to rise. Prosecutors have rested their case in the Tupac Shakur murder trial, leaning heavily on defendant Wayne PCD Davis's own words. Jurors heard nearly
Rõ ràng là hồi chiều trời mưa vẫn còn 2 con nằm ở trong lòng vậy nè, xong rồi tối rồi mình phát hiện là
People here in Southern California will have a front row seat to Thursday night's partial lunar eclipse in Wayne State to begin at 7:34 Pacific time. The shadow will gradually turn to a reddish copper color, but is not considered a true blood moon because it is only a partial eclipse. Nearly 1 billion people in America will be able to see the entire event. The main part of the event will happen around 9:12 Pacific time, right in the middle of our show. We will have special coverage from here in Southern California and around the world at this time tomorrow, right here on Story Is. More now on Dolly Parton, where she may no longer be with us, but her creative projects and philanthropic efforts will live on. Parton's manager says new projects can exhibit celebrating the life of the late Imagination Library will continue its literacy programming, mailing books to children free of charge. And a state senator of Parton's home state of Tennessee is proposing legislation that designates September 25th as 9 to 5 day in honor of Parton's all over the world. Even the King's Guard in Britain honored the Queen of Country Music outside Buckingham Palace.
I just wanna see you smile. I was wanting somebody else's. Now I wanna live my own. I have one day to live, one road to walk. So many things ahead, and I want sky up high. As long as not to look like somebody else. I got the
Meanwhile, Nashville's Grand Ole Opry dedicated Saturday night to parties. CNN's Jason Carroll traveled today to Dolly's theme park, Dollywood.
Those who knew Dolly Parton say she would agree with the old adage, the show must go on. And here in Dollywood, the theme park that she created, nestled in Sevier County where she grew up, it does go on. It was open today and filled with fans to share how she had touched their lives, even in the smallest of ways.
My grandpa swears Dolly Parton winked at him when they saw her back in like the 70s, and my grandma will deny it to this day. But behind his back saying he really did wink at him.
It's well known Parton was a prolific songwriter and singer, but here in this part she's she gave back to her community. Not uncommon to hear from adults who remember getting books as children thanks to Parton's literacy program, Imagination Library, which she started in 1995.
Promotion of education.
Oh wait, all of you got
Yeah.
all of you got the books. A book every month. Millions of children receive books, all because Parton's father could not read or write. Parton, who grew up very poor, wanted to make sure children learned to love reading. Her philanthropic efforts didn't end there. In 1991, she created a buddy program in Sevier County to improve school dropout rates. You get a buddy, you pick your buddy, and you and your buddy make it through high school, she gives you $500 each. David Ware was one of those recipients. He later became mayor and now city manager of Pigeon Forge, the small town next to Parton's hometown, Severville. Can you tell me what it was like working with her?
She was, so everybody knows Dolly on stage. Everybody knows Dolly. She's so wonderful. She's so charismatic, witty, pretty, resourceful, funny. She's larger than life.
Folks around here say just about everyone has a Dolly story.
Once that I came in,
Pigeon Forge police chief used to help with Parton's security team. He said she was genuine, down to earth, and had a good sense of humor.
best work.
I'm wondering how you think she went through the movie.
I don't know what time, but she's larger than us. She was good. She just kind of laughed that off.
Humor, grace, generosity. In honor of her life, flowers and cards left in a makeshift memorial at her statue. All to honor a woman embraced by the world, someone who never lost touch with her place.
We're watching the first hour. Here's the next hour starts.
Live from Los Angeles, the story is with Elex Michaelson.
Live in Los Angeles, and coming up here on The Story is rescue efforts underway in Nepal, where hundreds are unaccounted for after a devastating landslide. We're live in the country next. The story is visa appointments on hold. The State Department has paused immigration visa appointments worldwide as they conduct what they call in-depth training. We'll discuss what's really going on. And the story is a major loss in the art world. Yayoi Kusama, one of the world's most celebrated and best-selling artists known for creative pumpkins and polka dots, has died at the age of 97. But we start with that breaking news from the Nepal-China border, where catastrophic flash floods have killed at least 165 people. Officials fear that number is going to rise fast. Hundreds still missing after massive floods tore through that region, swallowing bridges, roads, and homes. Hundreds of foreign nationals are also unaccounted for, including at least 47 Americans. Across the border, Chinese state media report at least 3 people have died. More than 550 others are still missing. The video is very dramatic, as you can see here. Rescue operations are underway right now, but crews are facing dangerous conditions to even get there, with so many of the roads and bridges blown out. And forecasters say the flooded region could see more rain coming, and more thunderstorms in the coming hours, making it even harder to try to get these people out. The U.S. State Department says it is aware of Americans impacted by the flood and is closely tracking the situation. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio sent prayers for the people following the U.S. now rushing assistance to all the State Department says it's sending disaster assistance provided to the region, providing $500,000 in emergency aid. As we know, it's going to take a lot more money than that. The International Red Cross is sending $1.2 million, while the World Health Organization is sending emergency medical supplies, including medicines and tents. The disaster zone includes a popular route to Mount Kailash, a Tibetan mountain near the border that is revered by the pilgrims of several religions. And a warning, some of the videos you're about to see are
A bridge snaps before being swept away as floodwater pours into Nepal's Trishuli River. Video shared on social media shows people running and riding away on motorbikes, realizing how little time they have to get to safety. At this Himalayan border crossing, people on the street probably hear the recently earthquake-resistant building blocked the view of the monster wall of water until it was too late. From this view, you can see the floodwater's ferocious speed and massive scale. People desperately running for their lives and have nowhere safe to go. In what appears to be about 20 seconds on video, the flood